This episode of the People of Packaging podcast with Brendan O'Donnell from UW Stout, go Blue Devils, is brought to you by SpecRite. SpecRite is helping companies transform how they not only manage their specifications, but go to market quickly and iterate on packaging. If you are not speccing right, you're probably guessing wrong. Learn more at specRite.com/PKG. That's SPECRIGHT.com/PKG. All right, so this is a first for me with Brendan. He reached out to me and told me that he chose to study packaging because a professor of him told him to listen to my podcast, which is incredible. And now Brendan is finishing up his time at UW Stout. He's doing internships. He's building out his career. So we got to talk all about what it's like to be a student right now in the packaging industry. I'm super excited for this. Today, we're also announcing an NIL sponsorship deal, which is name, image, and likeness, with UW Stout basketball player Carson Moe. So be staying tuned for more on that. We're so excited to partner with Carson, to help him in his career, and to cheer on the Blue Devils at UW Stout. So here we go. Here's my interview with Brendan O'Donnell. Hey, everybody. So I'm joined by Brendan O'Donnell. Brendan and I connected up. Dude, it was like this week. Like, this was quick, wasn't it?
It was very quick.
Man, I was like, hey, you should probably check with Milwaukee Tools on if you can do this. And you're like, all right. And then it was like on my calendar. I'm like, well, all right. The man moves quickly. And Brendan, you had reached out to me on LinkedIn about, coming on the podcast, giving a perspective. And so I'm, number one, like, thanks a ton for reaching out, man. That was awesome. Meant a lot. And, just to hear about what you're doing in the industry and, even to gain your perspective on where we're at in COVID and, like post-COVID and I don't know. There's just a lot. There's a lot we're going to get into. But the first thing, we get into, it is the people of packaging. So, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Brendan. I am a university student. I go to UW Stout. I'm pursuing packaging degree. I'm originally from Milwaukee, and I am doing an internship at Milwaukee Tool right now. It's an 8-month internship, started in May, ending in December. So yeah, a little bit about me.
That's cool. And so that's like, if you were like a basketball card or a baseball card, that would be like the information that would be printed on the back.
Yep.
So, but we're always a little bit more interesting than that. So what about like your, what interests do you have outside of course, packaging? It's incredible, but you can't just always be hanging out and talking about packaging. So what do you do for fun?
Big things I like to do outside of packaging. I really like anything involved nature. So kayaking, I just went whitewater kayaking 2 weekends ago. It was a little chilly, but last time I could do it for the season. Hiking, I did a little bit of rock climbing past summer, but basically anything outdoors. Count me in.
Got it. So you're not one to sit around and want to pass your time,
Nope.
playing Call of Duty or Fortnite or whatever it is.
Nope.
That's cool. And so what is it like for you then I've been in Wisconsin in the winter. I worked for a company that's based in Green Bay. I get it. It's tough. So how do you satiate your appetite for the outdoors during the cold, long winter months in Wisconsin?
See, the cold doesn't really bother me too much. I've lived here my whole life so far, and I'm planning on living in the Midwest for a good portion of my life post-graduation. I don't really see winter and coldness as being an excuse to not get outside. A big thing that I am planning to get into this winter is winter camping. So going up to the UP in Michigan, and when it's super, super cold out, I'm really big into photography also. So taking pictures of the stars, just trying it out. I've heard a lot of good reviews from some of my friends that have done it, but I'm very interested in getting into that. I love sledding. I just love the idea of being around a nice cozy fire, wrapped in a blanket, hanging out.
You said winter camping, and I have
Yeah.
not that and then you also said the UP of Michigan. So that seems like a problem that I just could never do. I don't like I don't even like regular camping. There was some comedian, I don't remember who it was, but it's like I have worked way too hard to like go sleep in a tent. Like I'll Airbnb, I'll do that. Like I'll go to a remote place, but like bro, I can't do it. And I live in Utah, right? Like there's tons of outdoor
Yeah.
stuff to do here all year
Oh yeah.
long. And I mean, I love snowboarding and basketball, but like and some hiking, but bro, I can't do it. Just it's hard.
I don't
So
know.
good
Just
on you
get
for that.
cozy. Yeah, exactly.
And so does that kind of love of nature as you have gravitated towards the packaging industry, have those two things collided when, when you're doing, whether it's a project during your internship at Milwaukee Tools or you're working on stuff in school to really connect with the sustainable aspect of packaging? I would imagine that if I were out and I loved nature and I loved water and like I would really want to make sure that everything is kept clean, right?
Hmm.
Is that a connection that you make? Let's take a quick break before we get to that answer from Brendan on connecting nature and packaging and sustainability. I want to talk about Myers Printing in Minneapolis, Minnesota, an SGP certified facility for all of your labels, folding cartons, displays, gift card printing. You name it, we can probably do it at Myers. Head over to www.myers.com to work with one of the premier printing and packaging companies in the United States. www.myers.com. Let's hear what Brendan had to say about making this connection back to nature.
Oh, definitely. Every time that I'm working on a project, I think about what kind of plastic it's being made out of and like, oh, well, what if it's made out of this one? And then you kind of just extrapolate from there. And it's kind of become annoying to some of my friends because no matter where I go, I always like look at the bottle look at the bottom of a bottle or the bottom of a take-home container or something like that. And I always look and I'm like, huh, this is recyclable. And they're like, okay, shut up. I'm like,
Yeah,
well,
dude, it's going to happen your entire life.
oh yeah.
Um, I mean, at this point, my wife will even come back now from like, Costco or something like that. She's like, look, I bought all of this stuff and I looked and I read the labels and I'll be sometimes I'm like, I'm not sure. Oh, the other day, my daughter, who is 8, was like, hey Pop, how do I recycle this again? I'm like, I'm raising you right. And I had to tell her, like, you got to take the shrink sleeve off. And she had so much fun. And like, okay, then you put this in there and you put that in there. She's like, oh, okay. Thanks so
Hmm.
much. I really appreciate it. So it's gonna happen. It's not just with your friends and roommates. It'll happen for the entirety of your life. If you stay in the industry and I don't know why you wouldn't. It's awesome.
Oh yeah.
Uh, so a little bit of something I thought was interesting when we were talking beforehand is you would be the first person who has ever told me that part of picking your major was because you had a professor tell you about this podcast that I was like, wow, other people like I just forget that people listen to it, honestly, because it's
Hmm.
like, I mean, I see the numbers and all that stuff, but I'm like, oh, cool. Like some professor that I don't know who you can obviously give a shout out to right now, is listening to a podcast. And by the way, if you're into this one, like the Sustainable Packaging Podcast by Corey Connors is awesome. Corey's a good friend of mine. Packaging Design Unboxed by Avelio Matos. Like I got to give those guys a plug. My man Derek is starting the packaging show. There's all sorts of cool packaging podcasts that have sort of unearthed in the last couple of years. I like to think that I was a little bit of a pioneer in that, but um, Dude, that just made like I told my wife that like I was grinning ear to ear. I was like, "Can you believe this story?" So like it was so you're sitting there and it was an engineering no, you had gone to was it a packaging 101 course or something
Yep.
like that?
So it was a packaging fundamentals class. I was trying to figure out what major I wanted to do. I wanted to do something in the engineering field. At the time, my roommate was packaging, and I always just kind of made fun of him for thinking about making boxes for the rest of his life. I started out in mechanical engineering and then went into plastics engineering and then engineering technology. Then I was like, all right, well, like I don't see myself doing any of these for the rest of my life. And he was like, okay, talk to this professor, see what he has to say. The professor convinced me to take this fundamentals packaging class. Within the first week, I loved it. From there, I found your podcast through him. And then my kind of love for packaging just kind of escalated from there. And I don't look back at all. And I can definitely say 100% that this is something that I will and want to do for the rest of my career.
Dude, that's awesome, man. And who is a professor?
Scheffler, John Scheffler.
Professor John Scheffler, my guy. Thank you so much. That's it's super cool, and even to like, because it's really like the guests who are really incredible. Guests like yourself, Brendan, and then just so many of the people that I've been able to interact with over the past whatever it's been now 3 years. It's just been it's been so cool because it's their stories, right? It's their information. I just have the privilege of unearthing it and meeting really cool people and bringing them on. So, shout out to everybody who's been a guest on the show. I just think that's really it's really encouraging for me. And for the industry, I think it's all about just trying to get get information out into the world to so that people understand how big and how impactful and how cool this whole industry is. So, um, yeah, I just thought so. Professor Scheffler, I owe you a spotted cow next time I'm in. Next time I'm in Wisconsin, I should go. One of these days, I'm gonna do like a college tour and just go to like Michigan State and Clemson and Stout and San Jose State and Florida and Rutgers and Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, like all these places. I left one out. I'm gonna get an email. Someone's gonna go, "You left out RIT." There, I didn't.
There
Ha
it is.
ha. RIT.
Our team at Milwaukee Tool is actually mostly people from Stout, Michigan State, RIT, and Clemson. We went to, or I didn't go, but one of my managers went to Pack Expo, and they're like, "I didn't even know that these colleges existed. We got to start recruiting there."
Yeah,
I was like, "Oh
yeah,
yeah."
no doubt. I was bummed I didn't get over to the education side during Pack Expo this year to see. A lot of my friends have had people on from a bunch of these different colleges, and I was just so crazy, stupid busy at Pack
Mm-hmm.
Expo, just running around. But anyway, it's pretty fun. So let me transition here for a quick second because all we hear about in the industry right now is labor shortages, right? It's like, oh, young people don't want to get into packaging and it's not just the engineering positions, it's also the manufacturing positions. It's there was there are companies out there offering, six figures a year to run a flexo press. I'm sure being on your side of things and helping to run projects, you're probably running into like, hey, well, this thermal former normally only took 10 weeks and now they're at 30-week lead times or whatever it is. And
Yep.
you're like, oh my gosh, how do we deal with this? So for you, as you're, obviously getting internships and, potentially graduating it, pretty soon. What was it like next year? You're hoping to graduate? Maybe,
Yes.
yeah. Or whenever,
Next year.
whenever it is. Uh, so, whenever you graduate, do you feel like, man, I'm walking into we'll call it like a buyer's market where like you have kind of your pick of the litter on where you want to work and what you want to do. And obviously you still got to interview and do that stuff, but like that there are potentially more opportunities than there are applicants. Like, did you find that when you're doing your internship? And do you anticipate, are you hearing that through your industry from recent graduates? Like, yeah, I just had to pick from multiple offers.
Yeah, definitely. So I would definitely say that people that are in packaging and that are looking for a job, at my standpoint, they will find a job, no question about it. The career fair was really, really big for me. The last time I went to the career fair was fall of 2020 or 2019 when I first landed the internship from Walkie Tool. And I had, I want to say around 15 interviews. And then I got, I think, 7 offers. So it was literally just like picking and choosing between all of them. And a lot of the packaging students that I was friends with, they had the same exact thing happening to them. Um, Given that those are more of the co-ops, which the packaging field is more in keen with those, where it's between 6 to 9 months rather than 3 months in the summer.
Yeah.
It is a little bit harder to find those summer internships if you just want to work in the summer, but I honestly love my co-op. I'm so glad that I decided to do this over a summer internship because you really get to see the entire life of a project from kickoff to release. Um, and I feel like the first 2 months that I was on my internship, I was learning so much in a short amount of time that was like, okay, I need to learn so much that if this was only 3 months long, I would just start getting the hang of things and then I'd be gone.
Yeah.
Um, but to answer your question, there's definitely, in my opinion, more jobs than there are people. So if you stick your neck out of the water, you're going to find something.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'm sure that there's data to back it up. Um, but the space is like so hungry for people, and it increased in its, I mean, we were talking about this before the call, right? Like, a company like Milwaukee Tool, where the with the snapback of COVID is, well, people just did home projects. And I'm sure that that wasn't, when it first happened, I'm sure that that wasn't like, okay, we think this is going to occur. But all of a sudden, like, bike manufacturers and, accessories for, going outdoors, and fishing suppliers and DIY companies, and then, the food and the toiletries, and like all this stuff just like exploded. And I got to imagine, for you to have been in that environment at a company like Milwaukee Tool for the last, for a longer, I love what you said about the importance of the longevity, because you're right. A packaging project that only lasts 3 months is like, you might have gotten into some like testing, and then that's sort of
Hmm.
it, but you can't actually see it all the way through. But I have to imagine that there's a pressure to innovate and to hit market demand, but now you're also being met with supply chain issues. Like, you get the whole spectrum during
Oh,
this
yeah.
during this internship.
Hmm. Definitely.
That's awesome. You're gonna walk into a great job, I'm sure, just having gone through this. And candidly, I think that high school and college students who are growing up and graduating through COVID are gonna be, I would say, some of the most resilient, hardest working, adaptable, flexible people that we're gonna have in the industry for a long time. Like, I'm stoked for the stuff that you all are going to push and innovate towards, honestly. Because you're coming up in this really weird, uncertain time. Unlike, it's not like there hasn't been hard things, but this has been a, like, historically difficult thing that we've been going through.
Definitely. And even through my internship, there's been points where some news will come out and it'll be like, okay, like what happens if we shut down? Am I going to be working from home? How am I going to do this? And I feel like if they put that on us right now, if we didn't have the previous COVID experience of the quarantine, me going through school, figuring out how to do that online, figuring out my schedule, it would have been a lot harder. But now the idea of online meetings is becoming so popular, and people are adapting to it so much better, where you don't need a conference room for a 10-minute meeting when you can just do it online. And I think that's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So let me ask you this in terms of we'll kind of pivot towards like innovation within the industry. Have you so this is my theory on this stuff is that as I go through my life, there is a ton of innovation happening in terms of how I conduct my day-to-day life. So, from how I order stuff to how I get information to how I interact with people to how I interact with people long term. Have you found in the packaging industry that it's been lagging in terms of the tools that are available to you? I mean, obviously there's cool things. You get to work in like I'm not saying there's not cool machinery, but in terms of, I don't know, just interacting with vendors and suppliers and interacting with just internal processes. I've always thought that the packaging industry is like in the like early 2000s phase of just deploying technology. Has that been a similar experience for you?
I can definitely see what you're saying. Um, Obviously, there's the machines like thermoformers and stuff like that, where we've kind of just known it throughout since I started packaging, and I'm sure long before then. But as of recently, I haven't heard too much of like, this is new, we are using this. It's more or less like I hear a bunch of hypothetical things, but I'm not seeing it actually put into place per se.
Got it. Got it. Is that because I think, from my perspective, and if I were giving advice to, someone like yourself or just college students that are coming up or recent graduates, it's like, man, just don't like I work for a packaging manufacturer and I'm like, just don't be afraid to put your foot on the gas and challenge us to to step our game up from an innovation and a software and a technology standpoint. I because without that pressure from from your generation and from others, without that pressure, I think innovation is going to stall. And so, as you see those things, man, like put like put your foot on that gas, like send send it. You know what
Yeah,
I'm saying? Like
definitely.
just go for it because we need it. We need a really good amount of healthy pressure applied to us, and you'll probably have a lot of people who are differently minded who will say, no, 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 that's not how this works. Or that's not how it happens. But that idea of like, well, why not? Wouldn't this make our
Hmm.
life easier? Wouldn't this be better? Wouldn't this material function better? Wouldn't this structure help? Wouldn't this new technology help us, go to market quick? I just all that stuff, man. Like, don't don't get beat down by the no. This is the way we've always done it, folks.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's another part of I'm really trying to find another internship. And I think it's very important that people work for more than one company in their lifetimes, because if you work for one company, you see how they work, how they do things, and you never work at another company until maybe 10, 15 years later, you're going to be like, holy crap, like there's other stuff that people do that we could have used at this past company that no one knew about.
Right. Yeah, that's huge. And when would be your next internship?
Most likely next summer and fall.
Okay, and then you would graduate in the winter or spring?
In the spring.
Okay. So, what's that, 2023?
Yes, May of 2023.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Cool. Well, you still got some time. Listen, everybody, if you're out there and do you want to stay in Wisconsin for your internship, or you're like, man, I'll go explore for an internship. That sounds fun.
Well, I'm kind of looking to explore a little bit, but staying in Wisconsin would be okay with me. Wisconsin, Minnesota, I would definitely be okay with, but it's kind of just more dependent on the company, what they're doing. I know what I kind of want to focus more into in the packaging field, just from seeing different ways of my friends doing things at their internships versus what I do here, and kind of seeing, okay, well, like that sounds really cool. So I would like to do that. Or I really like this part of my internship. So I'd like to incorporate that in my next one, and making sure that that company also has that kind of same aspect to it.
Cool.
So
So
we'll see.
what kind of company are you looking to get an internship with? Let's play the game
Ooh.
called Find Brendan an internship.
So obviously right now I'm working in a consumer packaging. Um, I was also looking into food. The only one that I really am not too interested in is medical packaging. I have a lot of friends that have done internships with them, and it just doesn't seem like something that I would be thrilled about. I love the idea of consumer packaging where I can walk into a store or look online on a website and be like, hey, I made that. And I
Right.
think that's just like a really cool feeling overall. So probably something within that field, consumer food.
Okay. Well, I will I'll say this, my guy Patrick at Bona Hardwood Floor Cleaners with the UW Stout. He's always like, "You don't ever have anybody from Stout on." Well, Patrick, connect up with Brendan. Maybe he can get down to Denver and do an internship there. But that's awesome. So what's the best way if somebody would need to reach out to you and just wanted to either chat or talk about an internship or connect up? What's the is it LinkedIn? Is that it?
Yeah, I would definitely say LinkedIn is a great way to contact me. I check it constantly. I'm getting messages from random people or just sponsored messages that make me open it up, and I'm like, oh, okay, another sponsored message. Great. But I always check it, and I like to see my other colleagues' posts in it, see how some of the people that I've worked with that have moved to a different job, see what they're doing recently. So I would definitely say LinkedIn is a good way to reach me.
Okay, cool. I'll make sure that link is in there. How many people reach out to you who are like packaging salespeople who just see Milwaukee Tool packaging and they're like, "Hey, do you want to buy my widget gizmo from me?" And you got to be like, "Dude, I am an intern at this company."
I'd
Is
probably say like 75% of the messages I get are those kind of people that are in sales, and they're just like, hey, we have this great product. And I'm just like, okay,
dude,
sorry.
salespeople, stop it. Gosh, you're driving. I mean, I'm not saying don't do your job, but like, man, just do like a smidgen of research, guys. Like it just because they hit me up too, and I'm like, what possible thing do you think I'm gonna do? Like, it's
Yep.
oh man. All right. Well, again get creative. Like, do your job, salespeople, but like leave my guy alone. Can you just do that for a second? That'd be awesome. Well, at least you get to see like what are good and what are maybe some rough. Is there do you have like the worst? Is there like one where you're like, this was the worst? Like somebody reached out to me about and this is what they said. Do you have an example of that off the top of your head?
Not off the top of my head. I would have to look through the messages.
Got it. That's
But
fine.
there have definitely been some where I'm just like, I don't think I could use that at all. Just like, period.
Right. Yeah, it's wild to me. Well, Brendan, I'll make sure that people connect up with you on LinkedIn. I hope you get flooded with requests, although who knows, and that you can land a great internship. It would be cool if you were like, oh yeah, this guy heard me on the podcast, and I'd be like, oh sweet, another win. Like I was actually talking to somebody about this today. They're like, well, what's your goal? Like, what are you trying to accomplish with the podcast? And I was like, let me tell you this story. And there was another story that somebody shared with me about a guest that I had on, how it helped them in their job. And I'm like, that's it. Like, that is literally it. Like, I just want to be helpful. I want to be useful. And I want to kind of elevate our industry a little bit. So I'm glad at least it was, it's been useful for you. You've contributed to the community. Thanks so much for coming on and, sharing about your journey and about who you are and about what's going on in the world. Congrats on your first internship
Thank you.
and hopefully you get the next one here soon.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much for having me.
It was great. Thanks, Brendan.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, that is it for another episode of the People of Packaging podcast. Thanks for listening. It would mean so much to us if you would like and share and subscribe to this podcast. We want as many people to know about the incredible people that we have in the packaging industry, because we believe that packaging is awesome. Thanks again.